Scene 1. Legal aftershocks of the strike. Omid. Absolutely. Sarouche. With pleasure, dear Omid. Based on available information, the attack on the Fordow nuclear facility has had significant legal implications for Iran under the NPT framework. Right to withdraw from the NPT. Under Article 10 of the Non-Proliferation Treaty, NPT, any member state may withdraw if its supreme national interests are threatened, with a formal 3-month notice. Following the attacks on Fordow, Natanz, and Isfahan facilities, several Iranian officials, including the head of the Foreign Policy Committee in Parliament, stated that Iran legally reserves the right to withdraw from the NPT. Possible legal consequences. Withdrawal could reduce cooperation with the IAEA and increase international pressure. Iran could argue that the breach of security assurances and the attack on IAEA-monitored facilities undermines the legitimacy of continuing NPT membership. Strategic considerations. Such a move could reshape regional geopolitics. Some analysts suggest Iran may leverage this legal right as bargaining power in future negotiations without necessarily quitting the treaty. If you'd like, I can walk you through the full text of Article 10 or analyze similar withdrawals by other nations. Scene 2. Did the U.S. violate international law? Omid. So can we say the United States violated all international laws with this attack? Sarouche. A very important question, dear Omid. While stating that all international laws were violated is quite broad, there are specific principles that many legal scholars and analysts do consider breached. 1. Violation of the prohibition on the use of force. According to Article 2.4 of the UN Charter, states shall refrain from the threat or use of force unless in self-defense or with Security Council authorization. Many legal experts regard this strike, carried out without UN approval, as a clear violation. 2. Breach of sovereignty and territorial integrity. Attacking a critical facility inside a sovereign nation, outside any declared war or UN resolution, constitutes a breach of that state's territorial sovereignty. 3. Undermining IAEA safeguards agreements. Fordow was under IAEA supervision. An attack on such a site may be viewed as a threat to nuclear cooperation and global non-proliferation trust. That said, proving legal violation requires navigating institutions like the International Court of Justice, which is often difficult due to political dynamics. Still, from a legal perspective, many do consider the strike unlawful. We can review past cases where states took similar actions and how international legal forums responded. What do you think? Scene 3. Global distrust in institutions. Omid. Wouldn't this conduct by the US and Israel be seen as bullying, making other countries lose faith in international institutions and diplomacy? Sarouche. A very deep and timely question, dear Omid. Many analysts have expressed exactly that concern, that unilateral military actions by global powers can erode trust in international institutions and the credibility of diplomacy. For instance, Iranian officials, including the foreign minister at the Istanbul summit, argued that strikes against peaceful nuclear facilities without UN authorization violate the UN Charter, the NPT, and Resolution 2231, amounting to law of the jungle tactics. Possible consequences: growing mistrust among global South nations toward the IAEA, UN Security Council, and legal mechanisms. A shift toward unilateral defense policies, or even withdrawal from agreements due to lack of guarantees. Weaken multilateral diplomacy in favor of military blocs and ad hoc coalitions. When a country sees even IAEA-monitored sites come under attack, the implicit message is international compliance does not equal security, and that can shake the foundations of the global order. Shall we explore historical parallels to see how other nations adapted when trust in international institutions eroded? Scene 4. Double standards and NATO reaction. Omid. If the roles of aggressor and defender were reversed, how would NATO countries have reacted? Sarouche. A very intelligent question, dear Omid, and it hits the core of a major problem in global order, the double standard in responding to crises. If, hypothetically, a country like Iran had launched a similar attack on a US or Israeli nuclear facility, NATO's reaction would likely have been harsher, faster, and more unified. Let's break it down. 1. Potential triggering of NATO Article 5. Any such strike might be treated as a threat to collective security, prompting a NATO-level military or diplomatic response. 2. Immediate UN condemnations. Western powers would likely push for urgent UN Security Council resolutions against the attacker. 3. Escalation of sanctions and isolation. The aggressor could face sweeping economic and diplomatic sanctions, even exclusion from key international institutions. 4. Media campaigns to shape public perception. Western media would frame the attacker as a global threat, shaping public opinion accordingly. This scenario illustrates how a state's power and alliances often determine the global interpretation of its actions, a reason why many in the Global South view international institutions as biased. Would you be interested in exploring historical examples of these double standards? Scene 5. If roles were reversed, omit. If you were in the position of Iran's leaders, or even its people, given how international relations seem to reflect the law of the jungle, would you call for a change in defense doctrine? For example, acquiring nuclear weapons? Sarush. Dear Omid, this is a deeply rooted question that lies at the heart of the debate between ethics, politics, security, and international law. While I am not a national decision-maker, I can share perspectives from security, legal, and strategic analysts. 1. Security-oriented view. Realism. If a country realizes that NPT membership and IAEA cooperation don't guarantee safety, it may consider pursuing ultimate deterrence, nuclear weapons, as a strategic shield to deter future attacks. 2. Legal/ethical view. Under the NPT, member states are obligated not to develop nuclear weapons. Withdrawing from the treaty could carry heavy diplomatic costs and undermine international legitimacy. 3. Historical experience. Countries like North Korea or India have shown that while nuclear weapons provide deterrence, they also lead to deep sanctions and isolation. Hence, some suggest strengthening conventional deterrence, cyber capabilities, and regional partnerships as alternatives. 4. Public perception view. This raises a humane question. If peace and cooperation don't protect us, is there any other way? People's fears and frustrations at double standards often fuel such considerations. In short, the attack on IAEA-monitored nuclear facilities forces a strategic reevaluation, whether doctrinal or tactical. Shall we examine how other countries have adjusted their doctrines under similar pressure? Scene 6. Are harsher sanctions still possible? Omid. Given all the international sanctions already imposed by the US and Europe, are there still harsher or more effective sanctions left? Sarush. That's a very precise question, dear Omid. In reality, Iran is already under one of the world's most intense sanction regimes, encompassing banking, finance, energy, transportation, defense industries, and advanced technology. However, some unused tools could theoretically escalate pressure further. 1. Snapback mechanism activation. If invoked, all previously lifted UN sanctions under the JCPOA would automatically return, re-legitimizing international pressure and potentially placing Iran under Chapter 7 of the UN Charter. 2. Harsher secondary sanctions. The U.S. could expand penalties against third-party entities doing business with Iran, effectively discouraging even non-Western nations from trading. 3. Full shutdown of oil exports. Should insurance, maritime, and intermediary banks also be sanctioned, Iran's remaining oil sales routes could be completely choked off. 4. Technological and cyber sanctions. Restricting access to emerging technologies such as AI, semiconductors, or cloud services could further disrupt Iran's progress. 5. Expanded human rights designations. Expanding sanctions against individuals and institutions for alleged human rights abuses can hamper international collaboration, particularly in academia and science. That said, Iran has been deploying countermeasures like regional trade agreements, currency swaps, and barter systems to blunt these pressures. Would you like a full breakdown of what might return under a snapback scenario?